If you've been following my channel, then you'll know that up to this point, I've used my Fender Tone Master Twin Reverb for like 98% of my videos. I never set out to be a Tone Master Twin absolutist or anything like that. I got it simply because it's what best fit my situation and it sounded really good. I share walls with neighbors and I have 2 young kids who are either playing or sleeping right above me as I'm recording videos. So I needed something that I could record direct, that was silent to anyone on the outside, and that could get me close to Nirvana tones. While I was shopping around, I watched multiple videos of people shooting out the Tone Master Twin versus a tube twin, and in every video there was virtually no difference. So I pulled the trigger, got the twin thinking I would just recreate bleach tones and then have to move on to another amp setup after that. But I found out really quick that a Fender Twin Reverb can be a great quote-unquote all-in-one amp for Nirvana. When it's set just right and you're using the right guitar through it, it can get you close to every era of the band. Which 100% makes sense because while Kurt's main amp was not a Fender Twin, a lot of the main ones that he did use have circuits that are based off the Fender Twin Reverb. So much to the disappointment of the very loud tube elitists in the comments, I've just stuck with my twin this entire time and put my focus on guitar builds and pedals. But recently, I got a pedal that made me rethink my entire rig, and I've now got a new setup that I believe will get me even closer to Nirvana tones while still allowing me to record direct and without disturbing those around me. In this video, I'll be explaining how I'm recreating Kurt Cobain's main amp rig with 3 pedals and no amp. Along the way, you'll be hearing some of my favorite Nirvana tones that I've attempted to recreate so far using my new setup. This is the setup that I'm trying to recreate, a Mesa Boogie Studio Pre going into a power amp, going into a Marshall cab. This is essentially the live rig that Kurt Cobain used exclusively starting in mid-1990 until the end of his career. There are variables that change throughout time, like which power amp model, how many Marshall cabs, and which speakers were in them, but arguably this is the main and most used amp setup that Kurt Cobain used. Let's go piece by piece. The Mesa Boogie Studio Pre could be considered the most important part of this entire thing, and I am emulating it using these 2 pedals. The Nerdvana Paramount Tube preamp pedal and Mesa Boogie 5-band EQ pedal. The Paramount is Nerdvana's clone of the clean section of the Studio Pre, and it is phenomenal. I was instantly blown away at the cleans I was getting and how well it takes any distortion pedal I put through it. I am finally getting those Nirvana Mesa Boogie cleans that I was emulating with my twin. Plus, it has an actual tube in it, so I'm curious to see if that's going to quiet down all the elitists who love to hate, or if they're just going to find something else to bark about. A big part of Kurt's sound also comes from the onboard EQ section of his Studio Pre, and this pedal is Mesa Boogie's official release of putting that iconic EQ section in pedal form. It really does a lot to shape the overall sound and can make a drastic difference, especially when you really start pushing certain frequencies. So between these two pedals, I've narrowly got an entire Mesa Boogie Studio Pre at my feet, or I at least have enough for any Nerdvana needs. I don't have the lead channel or the reverb, but I have what's needed for Kurt sounds. The clean preamp section plus the onboard EQ. That leaves us with the final piece of the equation and the part that I bet most of you are wondering about, what I'm using in place of a physical Marshall cab. I am using a Mooer Cab 2X, which is a stereo cabinet simulation pedal. Through its software, it allows you to upload your own IR files into the pedal. After doing some research on IR pedals, I ultimately went with this one so I could have the ability to use two cabs at once and mix their respective levels differently all on the pedal itself. In the short time that I've had it so far, I've mixed and matched several different combinations of IRs of these cabs. And what has given me the best results so far is a Marshall 4x12 with V30s mixed at around 60% in combination with an IR of greenbacks at about 40%. Those are the IRs that you've been hearing in this entire video. it comes to anything Nirvana related, the In Utero tour will forever be my favorite. Naturally, these were the first sounds I attempted to recreate with this setup. For as long as I've been a Nirvana fan, it seemed like the In Utero tour almost lives in the shadows of the Nevermind era tours. I've seen so many Nirvana fans say that the In Utero tour is their least favorite period for the band, and that's fair, to each their own. But for me personally, those tours have not only my favorite Nirvana performances, but some of my favorite guitar sounds just in general. I feel like for the majority of his career, Kurt's tone tended to lean on the bright and treble-heavy side. Then in mid-1992, it starts to get really mid-heavy like at Reading 92. But then on Nirvana's final two tours, we get the darkest, heaviest, almost sludgiest Kurt tones. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, since at every show on the In Utero tour, his tone is being counterbalanced by Pat Smear's brighter and clearer tone. It sounds absolutely massive and beautiful when they play together, but isolate just Kurt's tone, drop the tuning down just a few steps, and we've now gotten into Black Sabbath territory. All the other tone examples thus far have been really fun to dial in and to play through, but for me, nothing matches the satisfaction of getting these sounds in particular. Kurt's JB Mustangs going through a vintage Sans amp, going through his Mesa Boogie Studio Pre is my favorite guitar sound of all time. Since putting out my initial covers that feature the Paramount pedal, I've already had a few people ask me if I'm going to sell my twin, but I'm not going to. While it's not going to be my number one going forward, it'll still be the go-to for some tones like the December 1988 Bleach sessions and Unplugged in particular. But I'm really excited as I feel like this is the start of a new chapter for my tone recreations. I'm still new to the world of preamp pedals and IRs in general, so I'm excited to explore and test the limits of this ampless setup and to see exactly what I can do with it. I'm still recording direct, completely silent to those around me, and getting accurate Nerdvana tones. With my current situation, I couldn't ask for anything more. Thank you so much for watching, and an extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nerdvana Guitars, and subscribe and check out my other Nerdvana gear videos right here on YouTube.